Hey everybody, Timo here. Hope you're doing well. This video is for Joe and Penny on their way up to Carbondale tomorrow from Boulder, Colorado. Hopefully you can look at this before you drive up or maybe in the car on the way. This video is inspired by one of Joe's tweets the other day around the Gunnison watershed. Gunnison watershed is just over from us here in Carbondale, Crested Butte, Gunnison, etc. I've spent a lot of time on the Gunnison Gorge, just below the Black Canyon of the Gunnison, incredible stretch of river. But he's talking about bioregions here and basins and whatnot. And also he has some tweets around climate finance and how do we finance local place-based regeneration. And that's what the basin has been working on for the last year. I'm happy I'm going to use 3 different examples. This is just the tip of the iceberg of what we're working on, but I'd love comments, feedback, critique, and I wanted to see the ideas come forth of how people could use this. I think there's a lot of base layer stuff that people can iterate on and grow and do whatever on. So the basin token, basically. With that, I'm going to use 3 different examples. I'm going to show you some stuff first, but that's the inspiration. And everything we're doing at basin is based on the water cycle. So here you go. You have, right, a big basin, you have rivers, you have tributaries, and it circulates around. It runs off, evaporates, condenses, precipitates, and then does it all over again. And all of our water in Colorado, for the most part, is all related to snow melt. So we're highly dependent on the water cycle, just as the rest of the world is. So everything we're doing in basin is related to the water cycle, and we're looking at flows of value around the water cycle. So that's just the model. Great map of just the basins. I know a lot of groups are working on bioregions and ecoregions and bioregional currencies, which is awesome. I think basin can fit into that mold and into that toolbox. For example, we are organizing by each one of individual basins, and you'll see in a minute, but basically when they get into bigger watersheds or bigger basins, they become bioregions. And I know there's some overlap of bioregions and ecoregions and whatnot, but we can cover that another day. We're just using this as an organizational tool. Here's the USGS basins, just as an example. And what I'm getting ready to show you on all these NFTs and tokens and whatnot are related to, it's more technical. It's our MVP. Nothing's really that pretty yet, but I kind of wanted to show you some artwork of where this is headed. And then I want to show you the functionality. But this one here is just an example of a USGS, a NASA satellite basin, watershed, river delta estuary. We're looking at doing some artwork with that. Here's another awesome NASA photo. You guys have probably seen this in the basin material quite a bit. This is one of my favorite ones because it shows like the plots of land, and then it shows different geological features, runoff, pollution, whatnot, nitrogen, phosphate, I think, some of the stuff in this photo. Here's another example of some of the artwork we're looking at for basin, a lot of topography. And this is the Roaring Fork Basin right here. This is the one that you see behind my PFP. This is a local artist with the Roaring Fork watershed. We're talking to her about maybe doing some stuff around her drawings and whatnot in our NFTs and in our tokens. So this is just an example of like where this can all head. It's not going to look like what you're going to see in a minute. And then this is the Jurassic Coast in England. And this is just another awesome NASA photo that shows some, I think goes over some roads and pipelines and whatnot with the drainage basins. This is a super pretty picture of Europe. You have Spain and France and the UK, and this shows all the different basins and watersheds. And this is, again, just some of the artwork we're playing with for our basin token NFTs. And so back to Gunnison Basin. This one is the Gunnison Basin. This is what Joe shared in the original tweet. So take a look at that. And this is just kind of what we're playing with for the basin token image. It's going to be different than this. We're looking at doing like a revolving coin, but I would like everyone to send me their money shots, their money face. So think about value. What we're trying to do is redo value and show value in a different way and express value the way we view value is that it's non-fungible. Value is unique to all of us. It's unique to place, and it's different. It's in the eyes of the beholder. So our token design is going to be your face, your basin, or your special place behind you. That's the head side. And on the tail side, we want you to pick an animal or an ecosystem or a place, not necessarily latitude and longitude, but more of a symbolism of a species like flora type fauna. But this is what we're playing with. And this is the greater refi community. We are all redefining money and currency and whatnot. And this is just part of the tool in the toolbox. I would love some ideas around that. So what we have here, this is our app. our baseline app right now. But we're just going to use the Gunnison watershed as an example of how we use this app. So let's just say Joe and Penny, they're here in Colorado. So this is the wallet. This is the multi-sig safe we have set up for the Gunnison Basin. So you can actually see that over here. We're going to start with $0, 0 tokens in the basin. But you'll see here the NFTs. It's not pulling the names right now, but it's basin numbers. But it goes back to this view and it shows who's actually in the Gunnison Basin right now. Charlotte, Joe, and these are just the names, Gunnison Basin, Gunnison River Basin, Alex and Penny and Todd. Let's just say they're all in the Gunnison Basin right now. And let's say, for example, that Joe is tweeting, Joe's doing bioregional design and whatnot. And what we want to do is he wants to promote using funds and whatnot for the Gunnison Basin. So what we do is we go over here and we type in Joe Basin, that's his address. And let's just we'll send to Matic over there. This is going to be an example. So give it a minute to fire up here. Okay, so let's send, we're waiting for that to send here. And then let's just say we want to send base carbon ton. Joe is more into nature. So let's send a nature carbon ton. Let's send 2 nature carbon tons over into the Gunnison Basin as well. So Joe's promoting it. Joe's traveling around. He's going from basin to basin, and Joe can move basin to another basin if he wants to. We'll use that in the second example. But we're going to send 2 nature carbon tons over there to Joe. And then let's say Joe says, Penny is with me. And so what we're going to do is, I think it's penny.basin, and someone wants to send, I guess we already sent that. Let's just say we're going to send our own internal currency that we're playing with here, some creeks. Creeks fill basins, streams fill basins. So let's just say Joe wants to send, let's say 5,000 creek to Penny, or he wants to raise that amount of money. Someone comes to this website and says, I'm going to send 5,000 of a token, any ERC20 token to penny.basin, because she is with Joe in the Gunnison Basin and we are raising money for the Gunnison Basin water. So we're going to send some creeks over there to fill the basin. Okay. While we're waiting for that all right. So we sent over that to Penny Basin. Let's just see. I don't think it might not. Oh, it already loaded. Some of it already loaded. So we go over here to tokens, and we might have to refresh the list here in a minute. But it's showing some dollar value. Oh, they're showing up right now. So we'll come back to this list in a minute. But remember, it was $0 balance before we started, and we sent to Joe and it's showing up in this multi-sig treasury here. But let's just use another example. Let's say Joe is back here. We'll go up to profile. Let's say Joe is meeting with Gregory at Regen here. Let's see. Okay. So let's just say Joe is in the Gunnison Basin, but Gregory Landaway is doing an event around the rights of nature. And you can go over to the Basin Rights of Nature safe over here, nature.basin. And let's say Gregory was over in the Berkshires, in some other basin. And let's say Regen Foundation was over in another network, in another place also. But let's just say we want to move Gregory over to the Rights of Nature Basin here. So so we're just going to move Gregory over to the Rights of Nature Basin. So he could be in any other basin. He can even be in his own wallet, and he could move himself over there. All this is going to be permissionless. You can do whatever you want with it. Basically, we're going to move him over to the Rights of Nature Basin. And while that's happening, we're going to go back to profile, and let's just move Regen Foundation over there as well. So we're going to go Rights of Nature. Okay. So now we're over here at the nature.basin, and let's just see if anyone's showing up here. We might have to refresh it here. That's all of the basins. Let's just go over here. So Rights of Nature Basin, elk, fox, ponderosa, rivers, beavers, you name it. We're going to town, wetlands, mountains. Oh, and look who showed up in the Rights of Nature multi-sig over here, Regen Foundation.basin and Landaway.basin. So now we can go back here, and Joe could tweet, and Joe could do some kind of publicity thing and say, look, I want to raise money for Gregory and Regen Foundation and all the whole Regen crew over in the Rights of Nature. We're going to do a huge Rights of Nature, and all of us on Twitter could raise money for the Rights of Nature safe. And so what we're going to do is here, we're going to go back to send tokens, and we're going to go to Landaway.basin, and we're going to send, maybe let's send some more nature ton over there. We'll send 2 NCT. I don't think there's any NCT in the safe right now. There might be a little bit, but let's just, okay. So we're going to see what shows up here in a little bit, and it's still loading. But if remember that Joe raised a bunch of money for Penny over in the Gunnison Basin, and someone sent 5,000 creeks over to Penny. So here it is accumulating in this safe over here. So you got 2 nature tons, 2 Matic, and 5,000 Creek. And then same thing if you go over to Nature Basin, that's increased by 2 nature. And I think we sent more. Yeah, we started with 2 and 2, and we sent 3 nature tons over to Bonfire Basin. So all this is now in a multi-sig and will be governed accordingly. Different groups can set up DAOs or snapshots or whatnot. We're still working out the kinks on that. But basically, this is all going to be circulating flow globally, basin to basin. And so that's place to place, but then also interest to interest, which is biodiversity, carbon, rights of nature, business, finance, law, social activism, impact, art, you name it. So we got common place and common interest. And we're setting up a whole water cycle, or we're calling it the basin stream cycle of flow of value. So that's basically how it accumulates and how it's governed. And then the other thing that I want to show you is the bonfire basin. Same thing. I just did a tweet on this. We're going to do a quarterly bonfire around burning Polygon carbon tokens, BCT, CT. I think there's a C3 one. Moss has a token there. And anyone who sends one of those carbon tokens to the bonfire. We're going to have a quarterly bonfire party, and we're going to have a leaderboard for the top 5 senders of carbon tokens. And this isn't to offset. There's going to be no offset claims. This is totally for carbon removal. And any tons that go into this multi-sig, the top 5 people will be added to this multi-sig, and then we'll select one randomly to execute the transaction. And we will burn all those tokens. And we are offsetting. We are removing carbon. We're having a bonfire. We're going to party. We're going to record it. We'll probably do it on the solstice, but same thing. It's that same example I showed you earlier. What you would do is you'd come over here and just do the same thing. Bonfire basin. And I have a few more NCT left, and let's do 4 of them. And we'll send 3 more NCT over there to bonfire.basin to be burnt. And here we go. And again, all these assets are going to multi-sigs, and they'll be controlled by local land stewards, rights of nature people, different legal groups, different organizations, different influential people will be on the multi-sigs. Right now, the multi-sig is Basin LLC. It's going to be turned over to Basin Foundation and Basin Trust. And then different groups, local groups can petition each watershed, whether that be the Gunnison Basin, the Roaring Fork Basin, the Barichara Basin, you name it. You can petition that for local on the ground climate projects with a focus on restoration and conservation. And that's for another video, but this is just the rundown of what we have cooking. This is more the collective version of if you send money and you want to raise money for a place or an interest, like we did the Gunnison, that's common place. And we did nature, which is common interest. So you can send money and that goes to the collective group. And all that's going to flow back. And I'll show you that later down the road. But we also have an individual in the collective where Joe or Gregory or Timo or Sarah or Rebecca can load their basin inside. They can actually recharge their basin, and other people can put stuff in their basin endlessly. So this is a system to maximize the prosperity of the individual and while the collective flourishes. Open to comments, questions, feedback. This is a very rough draft and whatnot, but thanks for watching and looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And I'm going to post this on YouTube and whatnot. Timo Industry is just fire away. We're building in public. So thanks for your support. And as we say, LFG.